Welcome to the Cosmic Prayer. I'm very, very grateful and humbled and excited to be here today, sharing the idea of prayer, spiritual mind treatment, affirmative prayer, this dynamic practice that has the ability to truly change the way we live our lives and we experience life. And each week I invite on a very amazing guest, a super guest who comes on to share their idea of prayer and how prayer has affected their lives or determined their lives and how they may be teaching prayer in the world. And today I'm feeling very, very blessed to be here with a wonderful teacher and leader and doctor, reverend and guide, and somebody who I have been woven in with in the teachings as she has taught me in the classes at Florida campus in ministerial education. So Reverend Dr. Peggy Hostetler is here to share her idea of prayer. She has just, I don't want to use that word retired. She's just kind of moving into a different phase of her beingness as a reverend from Florida campus, not Florida campus, from Greater Florida Center for Spiritual Living, after being there and really bringing that center to a place where it is filled with joy and light and love. And so as she moves into the next, she's still teaching at Florida campus on the faculty there, teaching diversity and inclusivity and pastoral care and incredible classes that I know move people like me in this education into understanding these practices even more and how we can apply them into daily life. So I'm really feeling just so thrilled and overjoyed to bring in Dr. Peggy now into the stream and welcome to the Cosmic Prayer today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Laura, for inviting me. This is such a privilege to be on Cosmic Prayer with you.
Well, it's about time. I was calling you in and just feeling really, really interested in your personal journey of prayer, not only prayer, how prayer has affected your life, how you use prayer, and also how maybe your life has changed or transformed because of spiritual mind treatment and these practices and tools that we use. So I'd just be really interested to start with, how you first discovered spiritual mind treatment.
That's a wonderful question. Prayer has been an important part of my life going as far back as I can remember. I was not raised in the teaching of the science of mind. I did not know what spiritual mind treatment was till well along in life, but I did have the sense as I grew up that prayer worked. And the examples that were put forth and my practical application of it was part of my growing up. And so when I discovered, because of a shared interest, this teaching in 1970, that was the first I ever came to one of our centers in Fort Lauderdale,
Wow.
Florida. And it was through a coworker that I learned about it. She was in the computer programming field, as was I at that time. We did not share a room at work, but we were the only women programmers in this company. And so we'd eat lunch together. And so one Monday, when she said to me, my roommate here at work has just come from a fundamentalist church the day before, and it sounds like his church is good at teaching you how to die and talk about heaven a lot. She said, but the center that I go teaches you how to live. And so I had to go and find out what that was. And as I did discover that it was for me, she didn't even have to take me. I went without her to the very first time at the center. It was all about affirming a positive experience of life and opening the doorway to expanding what's possible in our experience of life. And it was based on solid principles of our connection with the divine that creates everything. And so as I came to understand spiritual mind treatment, it made so much sense to me. Here was I, a computer programmer who works with logic all the time, a math degree in college. That brain had to be engaged. It couldn't just be blind faith that I was using when I prayed. And here was a methodology, uh,
Yes.
the principles in ways that not only could be used to get results in manifestation, but also ways that we could teach others how to do that. And to me, that was a wonderful drawing into this philosophy.
Oh my word. And the piece that I'm also hearing that I hear a lot is a friend introduced me, or a friend nudged me, a friend said, "Come on, I want to show you or take you to this very special experience." And so for you, I'm feeling that was a real heart-opening experience, using your head a lot and being, in that world of computing and logic and things having to make sense on the screen.
Mhm,
To
mhm.
be present and open your heart in that way. How did that experience actually demonstrate for you? How was your life changing then by using prayer, by using spiritual mind treatment?
Well, very early on, my husband was also taking classes. We demonstrated a new home. We were living in a neighborhood that really wasn't very good. We didn't know if we could get the money out of the house that we had purchased. There were new homes being built in another area in the county that we really wanted to live. And through prayer, all of that unfolded in that the seller actually bought our house. And we rented it for a couple months while the house was being constructed, and we moved our family into a brand new house, and I feel that's directly the result of our practicing these principles and using, affirmative and scientific prayer called spiritual mind treatment. That was just the beginning. There are too
Yes.
many occasions to get into details, but yeah, that was the first. That was the first big one. Mhm.
And how was it changing you?
Ah. Well, that's been a forever since unfoldment because predicated on spiritual mind treatment is this idea that the God force that creates and sustains the whole universe is not out there somewhere creating, and I'm just a creation of that, but that life force creates and then becomes that which it creates. And so you, Laura, and me, Peggy, are not just creations of the divine. We are the divine in expression. And I don't know how you can get more empowered than that.
Mm. So what led you then did you carry on going to the center and taking classes and becoming immersing it as a part of your way of being, learning more about this teaching and how it can really work? What
Well,
was your
that's an
call
interesting
then to
thing because
practitioner?
yes, it unfolded over many years
Yeah.
because I'm talking about it was 1970 that I was first introduced to
Yes.
the teaching, and our house was ready, and we moved in 1976. But by doing that, we moved far from the center. And so, no, I did not take a lot of classes at that time, but I did in
Ah,
intervening years since then. I was active in a fledgling center very near where I lived. And it was such a small center, it did not have classes. And my kids by that time needed a Sunday school that was in this teaching. And so, even instead of attending the Sunday service, I was teaching the kids these principles using the curriculum for the children in the movement. And so I was learning the teaching at an elementary school level as I was teaching it to my children and studying on my own. I wasn't taking classes, but I was reading
yes.
Thomas Troward. I was reading Ernest Holmes. I was discovering Nona Brooks. You know, all the great ones that come to mind of those who've had classes in this in Centers for Spiritual Living and Science of Mind. Those names are probably familiar to them. And I was studying on my own. Uh, but then in 1985, I moved to Central Florida and was near enough the Orlando Center to attend, and that's when I started taking classes in 1986. And then I went straight through to ministerial school and became a minister in 1995, and have been a minister ever since
Wow.
in our movement. And
Yes.
all along the way, the teaching was the foundation for my life, the life of my family, the life of my children. They were raised with teaching, and demonstration after demonstration came. And it was in all areas. It was in health and wholeness.
Yes.
I did have a debilitating disease in the late 1980s, and this teaching is the reason I'm still alive today to do the work that I've done since then. And spiritual mind treatment by myself and by my minister at that time, I'm sure made all the difference. So I would just encourage
Gosh.
everyone to know that this teaching and the philosophy and spiritual mind treatment applies to every area of life. There's absolutely no area in which God is
Absolutely.
not a partner with us, a senior partner with us, as we allow the teaching to be used. And I think one of the things I love the most about spiritual mind treatment is that it does give us a formula, a scientific formula to follow. Picture yourself in a fearful situation. And when we're in fear, it's hard to have faith. It's sometimes even difficult to pray for ourselves when it's really out there and a challenge in our face. And yet, if as we put these principles and follow the steps of treatment as have been defined, we do engage our logical mind to take us from a place of fear to a place of certainty and faith. How amazing is that?
That is, I just love the way that you've said that we engage our logical mind. So we're using our mind, our logical mind as well, to steer the process, knowing that this is happening in a way that feels logical, and yet it's not really logical because we're taking that leap into the unseen and the unknown.
Right.
So
There is a leap
what?
of faith that's necessary, but you get farther
Yes,
along the path before you have to jump.
yes, that's true.
Yeah, yeah. So may I
Yeah,
talk
there
about
is a
the
leap of
steps?
faith.
Yeah, may I talk about the steps of treatment, or has that been done so
I
often?
was absolutely going to invite you to talk about the steps and what is actually happening as we do this, as we take part in this practice. What is happening and what are these steps?
Okay. So let's say that you have a problem before you and you don't know where to turn, or you have a dream of your heart that is seems to be blocked in some way and not coming forth easily in your experience. The first thing to do is to define what it is you'd pray for. Sometimes we can say, well, I don't want this, and I don't want this, and I don't want this, but we don't know what we want. So we need to get to the place where we know what it is that we desire, and we know that we can get it. And so for us to know that, for example, let's say we have a health challenge. That's an easy one to talk about. And really a foundation of all of our teaching was over health issues in the 1800s
Yes.
and early 1900s. So let's say that there's a health challenge before us, and we simply are praying for healing, for wholeness to show itself again in our life. So that's what we would be praying for. That would be the purpose of our spiritual mind treatment, was perfect health, for wholeness, for the joy that that brings in our lives. So we set that before us. Okay, I'm going to pray for health. And that's the purpose of our spiritual mind treatment. So then we do the 5 steps. And the first step is recognition. Now, this is something that is believed by every religion in the world, that God is everywhere present, the omnipresence of the divine. Everyone, no matter what the faith tradition is, if there's a deity at all in it, it's that God is everywhere present. And so we put that in our mind. And let's think about it a minute. If we're experiencing a challenge, there's the strong possibility that we don't believe that God is there in that challenge. So let's turn our attention away from the challenge and put our attention on the divinity of God, the allness of God, that which creates and sustains the whole universe, that which sustains ourselves as physical beings, that which created our world and the beauty that we see everywhere, how unlimited that is, how whole it is. There's wholeness to the universe. There's no illness in the universe. There's no disability to the universe. It is whole, perfect, and complete. And so that first step is to turn our attention and our verbiage within our own thoughts, or what we're writing down if we're writing the treatment, to that divinity, that creative force that creates the cosmos. And here we are with cosmic prayer. So we put our attention on that which creates the cosmos and has forever done and will forever in the future. This wonderful way that God creates. And since we're praying about wholeness and health, let's put our attention on the truth that God is wholeness, that's the truth of being, that God is whole, perfect, and complete, and really convince ourselves of that, as I'm trying to do in my words right now. And that's that first step of spiritual mind treatment. Okay, it's great to know that God is everywhere present in all of everything and creates and sustains everything. But now let's put our attention on where we are in that prayer. And that's the second step of treatment, which is unification. So all those qualities of the divine, since it's everywhere present, must also be where I am. It must be where the person for whom I'm praying is. That if God is everywhere present and is wholeness, then that is the truth also of me. And that's that unification step. So I probably spend a little less time convincing myself of that, because it's a given when we realize there's no spot that God is not.
Right.
So we have grounded ourselves in this wondrous place of our sensing ourself being at one with that which creates everything. And that is a limitless source, and certainly can create for us in our life that which we desire right now. And so with the grounding, laying that wonderful foundation that God is everywhere present and all powerful and wholeness, and that we are one with that, because there's no spot where God is not. So we are filled with that which God is, and we are a part of those qualities of the divine. Now we can move into our realization step, that third step, which we get specific for ourselves as to that which we desire. And we always speak it in the present tense as though it has already occurred. We're planting a seed in that law of mind that will take fruit and grow. And so as we then claim, wholeness must be mine. And when we're talking about wholeness of our physical nature, our mental nature, here's a point that's very important for us to remember, that there is this perfect pattern for us in the mind of the divine, or else we would not exist at all. There's a perfect pattern for our physical body. And we can think back to our infancy, as we were created in our mom's womb, that our fingers and toes and eyes and ears and all the organs of our body and our skin and our hair were all created because there was a divine and perfect pattern. And that showed up as our genes and chromosomes in that one cell from which we came physically. But it's because there was a divine idea behind that, which is whole, perfect, and complete, which is the perfect pattern for us, individually and collectively. And so we can, in this moment of realization, recognize that that's the truth about us, and that there's nothing other than our thought or something that we have bought into that has overlaid that perfection, which was a thing of thought. And now we're planting new seeds of thought that can erase those erroneous things of thought and open ourselves for the transformation of healing. Now, those are the first 3 steps of treatment, and if we've
Yes.
done them really well, we're ready to do the last 2 steps with great ease. The 4th step is Thanksgiving. And so we give thanks that this is so. We give thanks for the divine and perfect pattern at the center of our being. We give thanks for the divinity that flows through us as God in expression, because God's everywhere present. And so then it's easy. It was kind of like when you know someone's going to give you a gift, you might, even before you receive the gift, thank them for it. So, Laura, if
Right.
you said to me, I'm going to invite you to come onto my program, I was thanking you before we ever did this, wasn't I? Because it is a privilege to
Yes.
be on your Cosmic Prayer program. So and in my thanksgiving of you for that, I'm accepting the fact that you've invited me and that I'm going to do that and be on your show. And this is what we do with that 4th step of treatment. We give thanks for it in the present tense as if it's already done. Now, it's important for us to know that we're not making anything happen. When we pray, we're simply changing our thinking about something. Remember, back there on the first step, it's God. It's the spiritual source of everything that creates everything. And so our job is not to create the healing in our life, or the abundance in our life, or the success, if that's what we're praying for in our life. Our job as we pray is to change our belief about it. And instead of thinking it's not possible that this outcome that I desire will occur, for us to give thanks that it is occurring. And that's what sets that wonderful law that creates everything in motion. And at that point, it's important that we let it go, since we know we're not releasing it. And that's the 5th step of treatment, which is release. We're handing it over to the law of good. We're acknowledging that that power that creates and sustains the whole universe is flowing through these ideas, which are seeds which we have planted in our subconscious, which is connected to the subconscious, the consciousness of the cosmos. And so as we let it go, there's this wonderful peace that comes. There's this wonderful certainty that we've taken ourselves from a place of fear to a place of faith. And how many times have we heard these words? If we've spent any time in the New Testament, your faith has made you whole. And at that point, that's what we're after, is coming to this place of release and of faith and handing it over to that which creates everything to create for us that which is our desired good. Can't you just love what that does for us?
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, oh, and thank you for explaining it like this and for sharing it. And I too said thank you when you accepted before you came on, for gifting us all here with your presence on the Cosmic Prayer. Reverend Peggy, thank you
It certainly
for
is a
coming.
privilege, and I love, as you can tell, I love to talk about this.
I love it, and I've written down some notes here because I have some questions. And firstly, though, I would like to just welcome those that are watching at whatever point in time viewing this. Welcome into the Cosmic Prayer here. We are with Reverend Dr. Peggy Hostetler, and we're sharing about prayer and her idea of prayer. And a couple of things that were flagging up as you were talking. Firstly, I love that when you talked about the first step, that yes, we're talking into the limitless, into the infinite, where everything and anything is possible. And then you talked about the erroneous beliefs, or the erroneous belief that maybe there are a couple of these beliefs, maybe that there isn't just one power, there are two powers, or that this one power may not, it's having that faith that that we are enough, and that we're good enough, and that there is enough. And so I'd really love you to share about that part, about the beliefs that we take on that may be universal in the collective, in race consciousness, in suggestion, and how sometimes, and I know I'm affirming this, but I'm not, I'm just questioning it, that it can be difficult sometimes to overcome those beliefs, even that we're deserving, or that God loves us, or that there is a loving presence that is always loving us and responding as love rather than as fear. How do we overcome that?
Okay. In the spiritual mind treatment itself, and in other times as we're convincing ourselves about this, certainly we're not seeing the results of this kind of prayer manifesting everywhere in the world because not everyone knows how to do this. We're always creating. Our thought is creative. And the idea is, as a small child, we were little scientists gathering all this information as to what life is like. And we're listening to our parents, we're listening to our teachers, those that speak with authority. Yes, we believe that. And if they inadvertently or by their example were teaching us something that is not true, we didn't have enough information to know that. And we embraced it, became a part of our subjective, our subconscious mind. Some examples might be, perhaps in our family, it seems that whenever anyone gets to be a certain age, they have certain challenges physically. And so we think, well, that's an inherited thing. And when I get to be that age, I can expect to have that particular health challenge as well. And so that is one particularly that we would perhaps choose to work on before it even occurs in our life. Maybe we haven't gotten to that age yet. This is perfect time to head it off before it manifests for us to realize that the human race and even science has filled us with some ideas which are not spiritually sound. This idea of inherited disease, for example. But what if we could make that shift and see ourselves not just as human beings with DNA and inherited things, but see ourselves as this divine spiritual being, and that our true parent is the divine. Our parents, our physical parents, our mother and our father, are the doorway through which we came into this life. And we would not be human beings on the planet without them. I don't know anyone who has not come by being born into this life as a physical human being. So that's what we all share. But at the same time, for us to transcend the idea that diseases have to be inherited, or that when you get to be a certain age, the certain challenge will be before us. And we can even use our logical thinking about that in the idea that if that particular challenge happens at a certain age, everyone at that age would have it, and that's not the truth, even from the physical perspective. But this idea of the perfect pattern for us, which is a spiritual idea that's behind even the genes and chromosomes that have created our body and attracted certain materials to us. So we've got fingers and toes and so forth. For us to see and make that shift from our physical parentage and all that was been taught in this physical realm to our spiritual parentage, which is whole, perfect, and complete, which is peace, which is joy, which is divine activity, which is success, which is abundance and plenty. All those divine qualities are our true spiritual inheritance. And so for us to make that shift from the physical thinking of facts to the spiritual knowing of truth plants new seeds for us as we are ready to accept those truths. Did that answer your question?
Yes, that certainly did answer my question, and I really like this this divine pattern that you talk about. I mean, the terminology, because I first read about that with spiritual economics with Eric Butterworth. He was talking about this divine pattern of God, you know, the divine pattern of prosperity, the divine pattern of who we are as whole, perfect, and complete. And so our training, as I'm hearing it from you, is to train ourselves to remember that, to constantly remember that this is who we are, that we are not defined by the material world that we are seeing with our eyes and with our five senses, to come back to that knowing of there's something else happening here, the divinity of who we are.
Right.
And that is where we treat from.
Right. Yeah. There's this wonderful clip that I've used on a Sunday talk on Father's Day several years ago from The Lion King. And you can look it up on YouTube. But it's when he's been off at the far country and having fun. But then there's calling back. And there's this scene where the Lion King, his father, is speaking to him. And he says to him, remember who you are. Remember who you are. And as the little young king, who doesn't know he's the king yet, looks in the water and he sees his reflection. Yes. He sees the reflection of what he is in truth as the new Lion King. And so those phrases, you're right, to remember who you are. Remember who you are as a divine spiritual being. And all that goes with that.
Yes. And so another piece that's come through as you're talking is, because it's come through for me in the last few weeks, is this idea that when I speak a spiritual mind treatment, or when I actually use spiritual mind treatment for something that I desire, and it may be a desire of a letting go of an idea or a bringing in a new idea, and then something seems to happen where the opposite shows up in my life and I'm taken on a kind of a meandering pathway of, well, that isn't what I was knowing for myself. Why is the opposite happening? And I came to realize that not losing faith in the treatment is really important, because then I'm going to be offered the opportunity to grow with these experiences that come along that may not look like what it is that I am treating for or desiring in my life. And that can feel quite challenging at times.
Yeah.
And so how do we keep...
There's a wonderful analogy that I would use in that regard. Let's say you're putting a garden in and you're going to start growing a certain vegetable or flowers. And so you clear the land, you dig up the sod or whatever was there before, and you plant the seeds you want to grow. Those aren't the only things that sprout. You get the start of your tomato plant, but there are some weeds that come up around too.
Right.
And so here we are. We could let those weeds grow and choke out the tomato plant that we are choosing to plant, or we could weed them and gently pull them out and throw them away. So yes, you're right. As we claim something new, the old ideas, which were deep in our subconscious, and even perhaps in our synapses of our brain, have an opportunity to surface for us to do just like we would do in a garden, and gently weed them and say, oh no, that's not what I wanted to grow, and remove them gently. Don't think that you didn't plant the right seeds, because if you start shifting your attention and thinking this is just a bed of weeds, you're not going to get your tomato plant. So for us to remember that we planted a good seed, and there may be a process for its unfoldment, just for things to come together in the right timing, and for us to stay on course, either to remind ourselves, remember who you are and what you prayed for, or to say an affirmation, claiming the truth and moving through those weeds, removing them gently from our thinking process, and say, there's no truth in these. These aren't my garden that I chose to plant. And over a period of time, you will find in this particular area of our life, as we focused on it, that which for which we are praying is what takes a dominant thought pattern in our thinking, and it manifests.
Yes. And it's not only our thoughts and the dominant thoughts that come into our experience, it's the dominant prayers as well, of course, because we're speaking the word and we're planting those seeds, and that's even more powerful that because we're knowing the truth in that moment.
Yes.
So do we repeat the prayer?
We can. I would be surprised
Yes.
if it's exactly the same words. If you wrote it down,
Yes.
uh, I would read through it and see what little tweaks you want to change as time goes by, because there will be some new revelations brought to your consciousness about it as it unfolds. There also are opportunities for a shift in the desired good to take place. I would say that with each utterance of the prayer, uh, becomes a part of a very larger spiritual mind treatment, which proceeds over a period of time. So there's no danger in saying the prayer
Yes.
again, just as there's no danger in doing affirmations about it along the way.
Yes.
What we're after is changing our thinking so that our life will change.
Yes. And creating a container within our hearts and in our minds where we know we are holding that space in with gratitude and expectation for it to occur and to appear, however long it takes.
Right. Yes. No one says
Yeah.
it's overnight. Yes. You wouldn't expect a
Yes.
tomato plant to give fruit overnight, would you, if you plant the seed?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
My minister here in the UK said that to me once about an oak tree. She said, Laura, you're planting a seed for an oak tree. It's not going to be a full-blown oak tree the next day. It's going to take some
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. One of the wonderful
So,
things about treatment, though, is that as we treat for individual instances, we are changing our consciousness about that aspect of our life. And it isn't
yes,
just the particular outcome of this treatment that's the largest gift of spiritual mind treatment. It's shifting our consciousness about that. For example, if we're praying for health and we have a particular challenge right now, it isn't just that we're treating ourselves to be healed of that physical challenge or health situation. We are opening ourselves up to accept wholeness more fully in our life so that we stay healthier.
yes. And that will, of course, affect all areas of our life because we can't separate it
Right.
into pieces. And so, Reverend Peggy, how do we take this even further out? How do we expand this for experiences and situations that we're seeing in the world right now, on our planet, the way people are being treated, the way situations are unfolding, political, all sorts of things that we feel maybe we're in bondage because we don't have a sense of control in our own lives. How do we take this practice and expand it out for the greater good of all?
Okay. As we pray for ourselves, we're praying for everyone that's in alignment with our thinking. I love the concept that if I've healed myself of something, there's myriad number of other people who might have been healed just because I prayed for myself. We share one mind. And so, as we bring
Yeah.
peace into our personal lives, we are also planting seeds of peace in the collective unconscious of the world. And of course, we can
Yes.
actually pray for peace in the world, and we do get together and do that together often in a logical way on the 31st of January. Everyone is praying for peace on that last day of the year at noon Greenwich Mean Time. So in Florida, where I live, that's at 7 in the morning. So you can do it structurally with others, and other kinds of prayers are going on. I know within our movement right now, especially for Ukraine,
Yes.
uh, and we can do it all the time. This idea of praying without ceasing. What is it I would like to plant seeds of truth about in my day to day that will bless the world? This wonderful idea that this world that works for everyone is the vision of Centers for Spiritual Living, the final statement of our global vision statement, and that we can individually see ourselves kind of as radio transmission stations, transmitting love and peace and joy to the world as we pray, as we affirm those truths, not just for ourselves, but for everyone, because we do share this one mind, this collective unconscious, and we're pouring good stuff in. And as we do, the old falls away. And even if we're not seeing the progress yet, for us to know that our individual prayer work is important toward that goal.
Yes, and so this is coming back to this knowing of who we are, and not only just knowing who we are, knowing how powerful we are as individualized expressions of the divine, the power that we have to be able to make changes and transformations in our own consciousness that ultimately affect everything in our individual worlds.
Right. And for us to remember who everyone else really is too.
Yes.
You know, it's easy to look at
Yes.
some of the personalities that the news talks about and see something less than the divine. And yet, our seeing the divine in them can only be of a positive result, even if we're not seeing it soon. The more we see the divine in everyone and in everything, the more we open to the divine expressing through us as an individual. If there's anybody that we see out there and we don't see them as divine, we're defining ourselves
Denying.
as less than. Yeah, we're denying it in
Yes.
ourselves as well. And so that's an important piece of this understanding to bring to mind, is that the work that we do is earth changing. We are changing our own life as we pray. And we can expect those, and we can build on that, you know, to pray about something easy, knowing that we're building our spiritual muscles, to pray for the things that seem to be more difficult is good conscious use. You know, it's like practicing a new instrument that you've never played before. The more you practice it, the better you get at it. And the same is true with prayer.
Yes, and that's not only people that are in public figures that we might have challenges with accepting who they are. It's people in our own lives.
Right. To
People we
remember
come
who
across
they are.
daily. Yes.
And in those moments, remember who they are, and to not necessarily overtly show that we know that, but for us to know it in our heart. That might not be the right time to actually converse with someone about it, but for us to never forget or remind ourselves to remember as quickly as we can that that person is a divine spiritual being.
Right.
And that's a forever challenge. You're right.
That is a forever challenging piece, a forever piece that's filled with opportunity.
Yes, that's right. And for us
Yes.
to see all of that as lab work on our applying the spiritual truths to our
Oh,
lives,
yes.
uh,
I,
because
I
we can do
love
this
that
reading and
expression.
studying. We can do the reading and studying all we want, and I do recommend that, to take classes and to read the books and to attend either online or in person Sunday services or other places where you can have someone teach you. Uh, and then to also know that each moment is um, the experience of it. And just as if you took chemistry, you do a lab experiment that expresses the truth of that particular thing that you're learning in class, that our life is forever teaching us. And as we apply it, then we know that we know that we know.
And thank you for using that word lab and experiment, because I think that gives us permission to try different things and do it in different ways and find the way that feels right, and make a kind of keep a notebook of this with our
Oh, yes.
prayers, so that we get an idea of how it's working and how powerful it is, and not just taking it for granted, because demonstrations happen even when we're not realizing they happen. Things I may have, called in a year ago, and oh, they're appearing now. And I may have forgotten that, yes, I was treating for that 9 months ago or a year ago or 6 months ago.
Right. And
And
that's
not to
true
be
when we pray for
surprised.
others. That happens when we pray for
Yeah.
others too. You know, someone might ask for prayer, and when we're done, we feel complete. And so when they tell us about the healing later, we might have even forgotten we prayed for that because we saw their wholeness.
Yes. Yes. Reverend Peggy, thank you so much for being here today on the Cosmic Prayer and really shining your light and your wisdom and knowledge through. I know I could talk with you for hours about this. I would love to, and I'd love you to come back onto the Cosmic Prayer another time to talk again, because I think this is an expanding topic. And the more that we talk about it, the more we realize more. I realize more about myself and my prayer life and how I can expand it and change it and transform it. And I want to thank you for being here and sharing here today on the Cosmic Prayer.
Well, thank you
It's
for
so
asking
great.
me. It's been such a privilege, Laura. Bless you.
Oh, that's a two-way thing, definitely, Reverend Peggy. And I wonder if anybody wanted to get in touch with you or connect with you. Are you counseling at the moment? Do you hold counseling sessions or prayer practitioner sessions, assisting people, or is that something that you're not doing at if anyone wants to connect with you, is there a way to, or
They certainly
maybe
can
that's
email
not
me.
something that you're offering at
I
the
never
moment?
say no when someone asks for prayer or counseling. So
Okay.
I am retired recently from Greater Orlando Center for Spiritual Living, and yet I do have time in the day always to pray with folks. So shall I say that, or do you have my email
Okay.
that you'll put out there?
That's fine. Or if anybody wants to connect with you, can they do so through the Florida Center for Spiritual Living, Greater Florida Center for Spiritual Living? Can they connect with you through there?
Most likely they should come to me directly since I am retired from that center now.
Okay. So I can put your email here.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Which is
Rev Peggy
email.
H.
Yes.
Yeah, Rev Peggy H. REV
Yes.
PEGGYH at yahoo.com.
Yes. Great. Fantastic. So if anybody is interested in learning more about you, or really for a reason to have counseling, prayer practitioner work, or a prayer request, they can email you in there and connect with you and find out more about what you're doing. Because I'm sure, even though you're saying you're retired, I'm sure there's an unfolding in this happening too, which I'm interested to witness.
I'm interested to do that as well.
Fantastic. Thank you,
Oh, I would
Reverend
love to thank
Peggy.
I would love to thank you, Laura, for this venue that you've created. You are blessing so many by opening the door for connections, and I just bless you in this work and look forward to hearing great things as it unfolds.
Oh, thank you for saying that. That feels so great, because I know that as a teacher and a guide for me, I just love everything that you're doing and the work that you've done and shared with me in class. And so I feel honored that you are here today, and you inspire me to keep going and doing this work and bringing these teachings forwards for people to transform their lives. Yeah.
Great privilege.
And of course, we're here through New Thought Media Network, which is a global focus ministry, sharing these teachings every single day of the year in so many different ways, with programs and through music and discussion and lessons and learning and meditations and prayer, all sorts of ways, which is very exciting and very creative. So you can know more about the network by going to the website address here, find out more about the shows and the presenters and the vision and the mission of this network. And of course, if you would love to be woven into the consciousness of this vision, there is a donate button there. Feel free to do so and to say yes to the continuing of the great work that New Thought Media Network is doing here. And as we always complete this show with a spiritual mind treatment, I would love for you to to do that today, Reverend Peggy?
Oh,
Would
I would
you
be privileged. Love to pray.
inspire
Yes.
us all with your words for whatever the purpose is that's in your heart right now?
Mm. So I invite us to turn within, to recognize the allness of the divine, ever present, creating always throughout the cosmos, here on planet Earth, in our lives and the lives of this world, knowing the power that spirit is, and the love, and the peace, and the joy, the divine activity, the harmony, the wholeness. Knowing that God is everywhere present, always, and knowing that right where I am, right where the listeners are in this moment, God is. And that all of those qualities of the divine are available simply by claiming them, by knowing the truth of who we are, for us to remember who we are as God in expression. And for us to know that as we are God in expression, we have available to us that wondrous law that creates and sustains everything. And that we can direct that law by our beliefs, by our acceptance, by the certainty of knowing the truth of who we are. And so, in this moment, for whatever reason anyone would choose to pray, I know that Spirit is behind the highest and best unfoldment of that good in their lives. That which calls forth as a need, a desired good, a healing, a healed relationship, whatever challenge there is before each one of us, let us know that those qualities of the divine are the truth of that situation. And that we don't have to wait to know the truth. We can know it in this present moment, that God is all there is and everywhere present, and all those qualities flow through this prayer in this moment. I give thanks knowing that that desired outcome already exists in the mind of the divine. That very same power that creates and sustains the whole universe flows through these ideas, bringing them forth into manifestation in wondrous ways. I give thanks that this is already happening in mind, and that it is unfolding in the divine and highest way for each one. I give thanks that I know that this is so. I release it into that law of creativity that creates and sustains everything, and I let it go, knowing that it is done, and so it is.
And so it is. Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Dr. Peggy. Thank you for being here. And thank you to everybody who's watching at whatever point the Cosmic Prayer this week with Reverend Dr. Peggy Hostetler. And I'm just feeling so blessed and grateful. I want to carry on talking with you even after the show's ended here. Bye for now, and we'll be back next week with the Cosmic Prayer.
Bye-bye.